Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I hope that you all are fine, happy and fresh. This is your science teacher, Muhammad Mashood Khan, and we are discussing chapter number 3, that is energy resources. Before I start today's topic, I would like to recall first what we have studied in this chapter so far. In the last lecture, we have studied about how fossil fuel works. So basically, the fossil fuels, before I start that how fossil fuel work, let me recall that what are fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are coal, oil and gas, and as they are formed from the fossil remains of the prehistoric plants and animals, that is why they are called the fossil fuels. Now the question arises that how they work. So basically they are burnt, coal is burned, or the oil is burned, or the gas is burned, which gives out the heat energy. This heat energy is utilized in boiling the water or turning the water into steam. This steam turns the turbine, and then the turbines are connected with the electric generators which which gives us the electrical energy, and this is sent out in the entire country. So this is how the fossil fuel works. Then we studied about the advantages of the using of fossil fuels. So the advantages which we discussed were that first of all, that very large amount of electricity can be generated in one place using coal fairly, that is very cheap also. Like transporting oil and gas, the power stations is easy. Gas fired power stations are very efficient. So a fossil fuel power station can be built almost anywhere. So like if we summarize the advantages, so in every example, like if we take the example of coal, so it is very cheap if we can utilize it in production of electricity. Then if we talk about the oil, so it is very easy in transporting. Oil and gas are very easy in transportation, so that is why they're preferred for the electric production. Then if we talk about the gas, the gas fired power stations are very efficient, so and almost they can be set it up anywhere. So these are some advantages of the fossil fuels which we have already discussed. So then we discussed about the disadvantages of using fossil fuels. So basically the main drawback of the fossil fuel is the pollution. Burning any fossil fuel produces carbon dioxide, which contributes to the greenhouse effect, which increases the temperature on the earth, or the warming of the earth. And the burning coal produces the sulfur dioxide gas that contributes to acidic rain. That is one of the biggest drawback of the using of this fossil fuel. And there are many, but we discussed only few. So moving towards the today's topic, that what we are going to discuss today is about the nuclear power. So nuclear power is generated using uranium, which is a metal mined in various parts of the world. Nuclear power produces around 11% of the world's energy needs and produces huge amount of energy from small amounts of fuel without pollution that you get from burning of fossil fuels. So basically the nuclear power is the one which is being generated by the uranium, and uranium is a metal which is found in which is mined in the various parts of the world. Then this uranium is processed through different processes, and eventually it gives a lot of heat, and then the same procedure which is being done with the fossil fuels, that eventually the electricity is produced by them. So the same thing can be done, and it is done by the uranium, but we call it as the nuclear power, and it contributes and it produces almost around 11% of the world's energy needs, and produces huge amount of energy from small amounts of fuel. So the amount of uranium that we will be required to produce a large amount of heat energy will be very less. Like the amount of uranium will be very less, but the energy created from that uranium will be a lot. It will be huge. So we will discuss further that how the nuclear power works. So basically the nuclear fission makes heat, and heat makes the water steam, then steam turns turbines, then turbine turns the electrical generators, and the electric power is sent around the country. So the next step is the same which we have done already in the fossil, by burning of the fossil fuel. Like if we compare it with the that how fossil fuel works, or how we can get energy from the fossil fuel, it is that by burning of it. So but in this case, in the nuclear power works, you can see that the nuclear fission makes heat. So what is this nuclear fission reaction? Now let me explain this. The reactor uses uranium rods as fuel, and heat is generated by the nuclear fission. Neutrons smash into the nucleus of the uranium atoms, which splits roughly in half and releases energy in the form of heat. So basically, if let me explain it by with the figure. You can see a picture on your screens that there is a neutron and there is a heavy nucleus of uranium. So this neutron comes and it hits the heavy nucleus of the uranium, which splits into two halves, and while as it splits into two, the three neutrons are furthermore emitted from this splition, and enormous amount of heat energy is being released because of this splition. Now further, what happens that these three neutrons which are being released by the splition of this heavy nucleus, these neutrons go and further hit the heavy nucleuses, and those heavy nucleuses are further split into two parts with the emission of three neutrons and the release of enormous amount of energy. So this process continues, and enormous amount of energy is being released by this reaction, and this reaction is called the fission, nuclear fission reaction, and it is a chain reaction. It continues. So how it is controlled, the question arises. So when there is a nuclear reactor set it up, uranium rods are used as the fuel, and this is a controlled reaction which gives us the controlled amount of heat energy which we can control or utilize. So this energy is further utilized in boiling of the water, and then it is converted to steam, and then further it is used in the production of the electricity. Now coming to the advantages of using nuclear power. So nuclear power costs about the same as coal, so it's not expensive to make. It does not produce smoke or carbon dioxide, so it does not contribute the greenhouse effect. Produces huge amounts of energy from small amounts of fuel, and produces small amounts of waste. Nuclear power is a reliable source of energy. So basically nuclear power are like they are not that much expensive to be set it up, and also they do not contribute towards the pollution. It does not contribute towards the greenhouse effect. It doesn't has any smoke, the smoke, or it doesn't releases the carbon dioxide. So these are all the benefits or the advantages of the nuclear power, and with a very small amount of fuel we can generate a very large amount of electricity, and it is one of the reliable resources of the production of the electricity. So these are the some advantages. Now coming to the disadvantages of the nuclear power. Although not much waste is produced, it is very, very dangerous. It must be sealed up and buried for many years to allow the radioactivity to die away. Now this is the biggest disadvantage of it, that although not much waste is produced as we compare it with the fossil fuel, but the waste, whatever the waste is produced in the nuclear process, this nuclear waste is extremely dangerous in terms of the radioactivity. Radioactive rays come out of this waste material, which are deadly for the life and humans in particular. So that is why it need to be sealed properly, and then it should be buried for many years so that this radioactivity dies or vanishes. So this is all about the nuclear power and its advantages and disadvantages. I hope that you have understood it all, and if there will be any question, any